I think it's somewhat hilarious sometimes how, as a society and as human beings, uh, we try so hard to relate things to other things that might not be, um, immediately relative. The first place I noticed it was in film school, and still today in the film industry or anybody who works within film or television. When you're trying to pitch your script idea, it's something meets something. So you're comparing what would hopefully be more of an original idea to two very concrete things so people can grasp um, like themes and genre relatively quickly. So if you're writing a script, you would say something like, "Oh, it's I don't know, Blade Runner meets Seinfeld," which actually that kind of transforms itself in multiple different ways. To the point though, with people, I think we try, and I used to think this was indicative of just people in Los Angeles and just living here. When people just want to be like, "Oh, you look like so and so," or "Doesn't he look like so and so?" or "She reminds me of this actress," or whatever. This has transformed itself into social media sort of things where like you put your face into an app and it tells you what celebrities you look like, and sometimes it's just absurd and funny, and sometimes it tries to be really accurate by mapping your whatever. Um, by mapping your whatever. Oh man. And there, I mean, I think there was a time, like several years ago, where we updated our Facebook profile pictures to the people, or to the person people most often tell us we look like. And then people were surprised sometimes, like, no, you don't, that's not you. And it's like, no, this is what happens. For me, though, this is it's hugely telling of my life in Los Angeles because I think constantly here people just want you to be a celebrity or to look like somebody else, and so there is this thing that happens. I'm gonna tell you about a couple of mine because I just think they're funny. It's just funny because I feel like I have a very distinct look. Um, Aside from being white and bearded, which is so basic, it's really hard for me to look at myself and think like, oh, I look like somebody else. Uh, for better or worse, you know. And sometimes I see it and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. But for me, this story starts at a very peculiar time in my life when I was in at my first college, and I was a little, I don't know, I think I was a little heavier, just a little bit. I definitely didn't have a beard. I didn't have facial hair. And I was awkward. I've always been sort of, we lost focus again. I've always been sort of awkward. I think that's always been kind of my thing. Socially awkward and just like not comfortable all the time in my own body. And my friend Crystal had this obsession with boy bands. She was obsessed with Backstreet Boys. She still is. When we were freshmen in college, she had this obsession with NSYNC. And I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound like I'm just saying it because it's great, but it made me really uncomfortable a little bit. She was adamant about the fact that she thought I looked like Justin Timberlake. I know, I know. It's like I'm not a champion of this idea, and I never really was like a supporter of it. Um, and I did everything I could to make her stop. She was very adamant about this idea, like, and she would even like have these like boy band magazines, and she would be like, look, like you don't see it, like it's in your eyes and like in your nose structure and whatever. And I'm like, I don't see it at all. Until one day, I think there was literally one photograph. I don't even remember what magazine, but there was one picture I was flipping through and I stopped and I was like, oh, well, that's weird. And then fast forward a little bit, I think it was in my early 30s. I had shaved my head. Again, I didn't have much facial hair. I was on a subway train here, and this guy in the corner was like waving me down, like waving me down. And I like finally like kind of popped my headphones out and like paid him attention to him. And he was like, man, he's like, you look exactly like Justin Timberlake. And I was like, thanks, thanks, thanks. But it all goes downhill from there, and it goes downhill pretty fast. It did not take long for my life in LA to turn into, I don't know if this is me in my own head, but, and I'm pretty sure I have friends that can attest to this, and this has died down. But I used to, when I would hang out in places, people would stare at me, and it would get awkward because I couldn't tell like what was causing it. But very quickly upon moving here, again, no beard, I would get stopped all the time and asked if I was Patton Oswalt. I had a woman at a restaurant once, like I was leaving, I had finished dinner, and I was walking past a table, and she grabbed my arm, and she was like, I'm so sorry, like, are you on TV? Like, people would stop me, like, all the time. And then I don't know that they would believe me when I would be like, no, I'm not. I'm not who you think I am. And then I grew the beard, and Hangover came out somewhere around, I think that was like 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Then it became Zach Galifianakis. Wherever I went, that was the new thing. It was like, oh, you look like that guy from The Hangover, which was kind of fun and not entirely, absurd. I could see it, but it's also like not every white dude with a beard looks like Zach Galifianakis. Like, I look at him and I think he's got a very distinct look. There is a guy who dresses as Zach Galifianakis up on Hollywood Boulevard from The Hangover who's like kind of like spot on. But now we're in 2017 and nothing is normal. Nothing can stay the same. Everything has to constantly change and become a more ridiculous version of itself. The other night I was out in Culver City and a gentleman, using the term lightly, I noticed he was sort of staring at me from a few feet away, and he politely kind of intervened in a conversation, and he was like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to tell you, like, you remind me of the guy from Harry Potter with the big beard and the big dog. It's Hagrid. It's Hagrid. It's Hagrid. I'm sorry to interrupt. You remind me of Hagrid. Now, I love Hagrid. Hagrid's seemingly a good dude. This isn't the first time Hagrid's happened, though. A friend of mine made the Hagrid connection several months ago. Now, when he introduces me to his friends, he'll be like, oh, no, like, you know Frankie. You've seen Frankie. Like, you've seen all the Harry Potter movies. And it takes them a minute to get the joke, and we laugh, whatever. But now, so, like, I texted him that night, and I was like, you're never going to believe what some guy just said to me. And he was like, no way, like, this is great. I'm like, how has this happened? To me, it's just, like, picturing, my growth. You know that chart of, like, how, like, a caveman, like, evolved into, like, modern man? Like, I picture it as my chart as, like, me evolving into, like, Patton Oswalt, then Zach Galifianakis, then Hagrid. And, like, I don't know what's next. I can only assume where it goes from here as I devolve into something. I don't know. That's all I got today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, then maybe you could, I don't know, like this video. I'll see you next week. Bye.